It's been a while since you've actually been doing any type of studying at all, and now that you're interested in IT, you want to earn an IT certification, well, that means you have to get into certification exam mode. And that may actually be a little bit more concentrated, a little bit more technically challenging than you may have actually been led to believe. So let's go ahead and talk about this idea of how in the world should we take a look at studying for any type of IT professional certification exam. Well, I'm going to actually show you some of the tips that I use, as well as a lot of people end up using to help them to succeed on their very first certification test as well. So I'm a Cisco guy, so I'm going to actually use, of course, CCNA to actually help us out when we actually choose to begin to study for it. So let me go ahead and show you what I end up doing. Now, as I've chosen that as an exam, I'm going to go to the vendor's website. And so let's go ahead and take a look and we'll show you that. So once I get to the vendor's website, I can type in any of my favorite search engines that are out there. You can, of course, just type in Cisco certifications, and more than likely that will, of course, bring you to, well, this site as well, okay? And if you've actually heard, say, everybody wants to actually take a look at, of course, doing the CCNA, which is the most popular Cisco certification that's out there, well, you'll see that there's different levels of them. Entry level, associate level, professional level, expert level, and even architect. Each one's described up there depending on the level that you want to jump in with. If this is your first one, I recommend that you actually do either the CCT or the associate level. The associate level is probably the one that you actually end up picking as well. Okay. So when you select that, well, now what do? You want to click on the link here. And of course, that brings you to a much more detailed and specific page that will, of course, give you some of the things that you're actually looking for. Notice they have a guide here that says exam topics, additional study materials, of course, that you can purchase from Cisco and from Cisco Press and other places, and then their official e-learning stuff as well, okay? Now, what I'm looking for at the very beginning is just what is going to be on the exam. Well, notice they have something called the exam topics. Now, you'll hear this actually referred to all across the internet in different things. You'll hear the term exam blueprint. You'll hear the term exam objectives. Here, of course, we actually see the term exam topics, but more than likely you'll hear the term exam blueprint very often in the Cisco realm is what you'll hear. You have the nice little description, but now you have the breakdown of what's actually on each one of these topics. Now, you can actually download this in a PDF format, which I've already done, and I want to show you that as well because this is where it's going to really help you out as you begin your study process as well. So here it is. It actually tells you the exam description, how long it actually is going to be, and it doesn't tell you how many questions that there's actually going to be, and that's because it can actually choose to change the number of questions. So for example, when I took it, it was 102 questions, okay? But that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be 102 for you. So just realize that this is going to be true, and always, as you actually do this, get the latest copy from the Cisco, the official certification page that we actually saw right there, because these can change at any time if they choose to. So make sure you get the latest one that you can, and that will actually help you out. Now, just when I say that, it doesn't mean that they'll change it every week, but make sure you're actually studying on the latest one that you can actually download as well. So, of course, there'll be network fundamentals. You actually will have another section then on network access. But here, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but notice they break down on the percentages and the topics that you actually take a look at and choose to do. So those will become very important because that's what's going to keep you on target to ensure that you're actually studying for the exam itself and in the proper manner that you need to, okay? So when we start doing something like that, that's what we want to do. Now, let me go ahead and give you some other tips as well to help you out as we start studying. So the first thing, like we said, we'll download the exam objectives from the vendor, and then what I want you to do, of course, is set a goal for your exam date, okay? And that's going to be key because that will actually help keep you motivated to ensure that you're studying on a daily basis. Now, in any other exam, you might be able to take a break from. And if you do, you've got to jump right back on the horse as soon as you can. But overall, though, what you want to do is actually you want to have continuous, uninterrupted study as you can on a daily basis. Because the exam knowledge, as much as you're actually learning for a certification, it can dissipate very quickly if you're not on it on a daily basis. So set your goal. Let's say it's 30 days out, 60 days out, 90 days out. That's all up to you, but set it up so that you actually mark that on your calendar and that you're ready to go. Secondly, what you want to do is you want to take some type of some type of assessment test. One that may bring you into the environment of like a test that you'll take, but it's a practice exam is what you're talking about, okay? And we'll talk about that a little bit more in detail in a moment. I'll show you where you can actually get something like that as well. Have a plan on how you're going to study. Now, what do I mean by the plan? You want to make sure that you know what time of day you're going to study. This should not be haphazard, okay? You should set it in the morning if you're actually good in the morning, if you have the ability to. If you have work, you may have to set it after, or you have to set it before. But whatever it is, you want to make sure that you can dedicate some time in the day. How many sessions are you going to do per day? The sessions are up to you. Whether you're talking about 30 minutes, an hour, or 90 minutes, I recommend those intervals of time that you can do uninterrupted is what you can do. Are you going to do 2 sessions? Or are you going to do 3 sessions? I do not recommend a marathon 8 hours a day. Your mind just can't handle it that way. So I say a max of 3 sessions. Take 15-minute breaks in between, and you actually be ready to go as well. Do not give yourself more than 15, or your mind will start to wander. So make sure you actually do those in particular. Have a set place and gather all the resources that you need to study. Do not have them scattered about. Have them gathered and ready to go as you're starting your session. That way everything is within reach. This includes things like snacks that you need, as well as, of course, any type of refreshment that you'll be using. My recommendation is that during the study, do not eat sugar as you're studying. Eat it on your breaks, but not during. Make sure you actually get some good snacks as well. But all that's actually part of the good plan that you need. Then, of course, every day, commit and make sure that the goals that you have towards every single study session. You may find out that you can only learn about one topic or maybe 2 topics, but make sure you commit and make sure you actually get to the end of those topics as you do to, and that you're working along the official exam objective points that you have, okay? Now, once you've gotten to that point, once you take the initial assessment, like in step number 2 that I'm showing you, that will give you a baseline of how well that you've done or how poorly that you've done. Don't take that personally. Everybody has to start somewhere. What you're hoping as you actually hit about 50% of the topics that you're covering is now as you go back through and you take another assessment that score has increased. In other words, if you actually have stayed about the same, it more than likely indicates that your study time is not as effective as it needs to be. And that means you need to buckle down a little bit more and go over that same 50% again before you proceed. Okay? Now, if you actually have continued to show progress between the first time you took the assessment, let's say you scored a 35% on the first assessment. The second assessment, you now scored a 65, 70%. That's what you're hoping for, okay? Somewhere along there or another, any type of improvement, keep proceeding on. When you're not showing improvement, go back and restudy the sections in which you haven't shown any improvement on. Then, of course, at the end, when you actually have hit towards the end of those exam objectives and goals, take the assessment again, and you should have the majority of those questions answered by looking at it the first time, okay? And that will show you that your progress is actually continuing on. And then, of course, the days before your exam, you'll go ahead and do a final review as well. Now, let's talk about this idea of the assessment, which is actually very key. And, of course, as much as you can, especially if your particular exam requires some hands-on training to do, just like a Cisco certification. Well, you can always find different things all across the internet here, but you can always go to IT Pro TV as well. Now, with IT Pro TV and some of the subscriptions that you have access to, you not only have access to the course that you need for more training material, but notice here is the idea of the assessment tests. So I can select practice tests and CCNA, and when I do so, I can launch that practice test. From there, you actually see that you can actually do it multiple times if you choose to, but what you want to do is you want to take it in whatever they call the test-taking mode, okay? And that is, they're going to actually try and treat it exactly like an exam does. You're not getting the answers immediately afterwards. Take it as an assessment that way, okay? Get about 50% through, come back through, launch the practice exam again, say that you want to take the test-taking exam mode or whatever the terminology is there. Make sure you do that and show that you actually have increased in that particular percentage as well, and do that one more time before the very end. Now, once you actually do that in each study in between, you want to go back to your course, and then when it calls for it, also you have the ability to take advantage of different study labs that are also out there. And these are, even though we call them virtual labs, well, for the Cisco labs, our lab vendor partner actually has real Cisco equipment that you can work on, and these are covering, well, the exam objectives themselves. I'm not going to tell you that they match up exactly with what we have in our library, but they will help you out where you can actually launch per module. And that way you'll actually also have study lab guides that will help you out if you want to. In other words, a guided lab if you choose to, or sometimes you can actually free form it as you actually go along and learn about the different technologies as well. So all that is a single ready source and available material for you as you actually continue to practice. Now, every certification vendor may actually do things a little bit differently, but here, using this example, hopefully that's giving you a little bit of confidence and also helped you out as you actually get ready to study for your certification exam. So take advantage of that. And also, of course, if you actually use IT Pro TV, we'll see you there in our library.